Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is Naeem Mushtaq here. And today we are very blessed and honored to have Brother Habib and also Brother Bruce Lawrence, who will be joining us shortly.
Assalamu alaikum. Nice to see you, Dr. Naeem.
Wa alaikum assalam. It's so good to have you here with us. You are from Istanbul right now, right?
I wish I were in Istanbul, but unfortunately I'm in North Carolina.
Okay, lovely, lovely, lovely. Can you just move down a little bit of your camera so we can? Yeah, this is much better now.
Yeah, that's great.
Lovely. Yeah, lovely. So I was just, we were thinking to start and then you can join us, but luckily you have joined us on the right time. I was just introducing myself. I am based in, I was born and raised in Lahore, but now I am settled down in Islamabad. And now I have an experience of about 25 years of interfaith dialogue. I'm also a published author. And on my YouTube channel, this is a Coffee with Friends series, basically. And I talk to my friends, my different, contacts in a very friendly conversational style. And we discuss different serious theological issues, just like over a cup of coffee, talking to each other. So there are no formalities. It's like three of us are in a coffee shop and we are talking to each other. And whatever we are talking to each other, the people will be listening and, they will be getting a lot of guidelines and guidance. And this is not a live program. This is a recorded one. And when I will be uploading the video, I'll be putting all the information related to your introduction and where to get this Holy Quran in the video description. So after my brief introduction, I was thinking instead of me introducing both of you, I would like both of you to introduce yourself in your own words. So people can hear your, lovely voice and get to know you more better. So maybe we can start with Brother Habib.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Dr. Naeem, for inviting us to talk with you. I'll just briefly introduce myself. I'm a professor of English at Rutgers University in the United States. And I was born in India. I grew up in England. And when I finished my PhD, I moved to America. And basically, my field is modern English literature, literary theory, and philosophy. But over the last 10 years, I've been working with Professor Bruce Lawrence on a translation of the Qur'an. And Bruce can talk more about this later, but basically we thought it was a good idea in translating the Quran to have a collaboration between a scholar of English and an Islamic scholar. And so that's how we kind of came to work together.
Lovely. How about Brother Bruce?
So, sorry, my throat's a little hoarse. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
I'm very happy to be here. I'll recover my voice in a little bit.
It's okay. We can hear you.
Hope you can hear me, even though my voice is a little raspy. So my trajectory is similar to Rafi's, but with a different turn. I was going to be a history major. In fact, I did major in history all my school years, but I got very interested in Islamic history when I was an undergraduate and took both Arabic and Turkish. I was still a teenager. And then through a series of events, I became a graduate student at Yale and then a professor of comparative religions at Duke University, where I've been for the last, actually almost half a century.
Wow.
So I retired in 2011 after I've been teaching for 40 years.
Wow.
So technically I've been teaching at Duke for 50 years.
Wow, lovely.
But the last 10, 12 years, despite COVID, I've been associated with the Alliance of Civilizations at Ibn Khaldun University in Istanbul.
Okay.
Through there, I've had the opportunity to teach not just undergraduates who were mostly non-Muslim and ignorant of anything about Islam other than the headlines, which isn't very much beyond ignorance. But I've also had the possibility of teaching graduate students who come from all over the world, from Russia, believe it or not, from Pakistan, of course, and also from Africa and Eastern Europe. So my wife and I, my wife is a professor of modern Arabic, Dr. Miriam Cook. So we both are associated with Ibn Khaldun University in Istanbul. The only thing I want to add to what Rafi said about the Quran is he's focused on literature and I focus on history. And we both come to the Quran, he through observance as a Muslim, and I, because in my travels, I met Ibrahim Abu Nab, a very wonderful other scholar of English literature like Rafi. And he convinced me that if I knew Arabic, I had to learn the Quran by heart. I never learned the Quran by heart, but I learned to love it through him. And that was in the 1980s. And he said, you can't really appreciate the Quran unless you can translate two words, Rahman and Rahim.
Yeah.
And that gets us into the story.
Sorry, I missed the name of the guy you mentioned.
Ibrahim Abu Nab.
Okay. He's
he
based in where?
He was based in Amman, Jordan.
Oh, okay, lovely. Take it. Okay. So lovely. So let's see the Quran we are going to talk about, the translation you have done both. Can I see the picture? I'm like, yeah, okay, lovely. Lovely. And this is printed where? In the USA or in the England or?
Yes, it's printed by Liveright Norton, who are based in New York, and they have branches in England and the Middle East, I think. Yeah.
Oh,
so
lovely.
that's
So this is the just the English translation or Arabic and English in front of each other?
It's just the English. Yeah.
Just the English one. Okay.
Actually, that's such an important question. I think we should pause on it for a moment because there are some people who said you can never translate the Quran into English or any language.
This is one of
the Arabic, you don't have the perfect word of God. And so without God's own word, you can't possibly have anything that approaches it. So one of the things that Rafi and I tried to do, I hope we succeeded a little bit, is to give a feeling for what the Quran would be like in English if you did not have the Arabic.
Okay.
Not to say the Arabic isn't the most important or it isn't something which everyone should try and learn to read and write and recite. But it's just the world has a lot of people who are not Arab, devout Muslims, or even devout people who are not Muslim, who want to appreciate the Quran. And so while it's good to have it with the Arabic, it's also wonderful if you can have some sense of it without the Arabic as a complete guide.
So you basically wanted to focus on the English-speaking communities to own it through their own language.
Well, you know, Abdullah Yusuf Ali, if I can quote him, because I've written a book on the Quran in English about translations. And Abdullah Yusuf Ali, whom I'm sure you know of, from
Abdullah, yes, I know.
He said in the introduction to his translation of the Quran that he wanted to make English an Islamic language. And you can only do that if you translate the Quran into English that's readable.
And also, he also tried to adopt the English style of the King James Version, the royal sense of the English language.
In that respect, Arbery exceeded him.
Oh, okay, lovely. So my first question, I was thinking to maybe, I'll put it to Brother Habib also. Why another translation? There are so many English translations. So what was the idea behind it, producing another translation?
Do you want to go first, Bruce?
Yeah,
and then I'll come.
Whatever. Yeah.
Well, I think Rafi could go first because he's the lead or he's the poet. I'm just a bystander.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, I think yes. So we are very aware, especially Bruce is aware of the numerous translations out there, and you know, a lot of them. And our purpose is not to criticize any of them, because we believe that translating the Quran is really a collective enterprise. No one translation can be perfect, and each translation contributes something of its own. But we felt that most translations of the Quran have been produced by Arabists, people who know Arabic very well. but sometimes the English into which it's translated is not very readable. They might be very accurate, which is commendable, but a lot of readers of the English language often find it very difficult to read translations. So we wanted to produce a translation which was readable, which was idiomatic, and which had some kind of poetic flavor. Yeah.
Lovely. Brother Bruce.
So the only thing I would add to that is that if one emphasizes only the accuracy of the Quran, one can do that in meaning, as Muhammad Asad did in his rendition of the message of the Quran. The difficulty is that if you accent only the meaning and the accuracy of meaning, you don't remember the sound and the tone. And one of the lovely things about Rafi's approach is if you can't hear the Quran, you can't understand it. So it must be sound as well as meaning.
Lovely.
And so the idea, I think, was, and we both talk about this in the introduction. I think the idea is that our translation, like the Quran itself, is meant to be read aloud, because no one really reads the Quran silently, right?
Exactly.
You know, Muslims, even when they read it to themselves, they read it aloud, they hear it recited aloud, they follow it recited aloud when they're praying. And unless it's recited aloud, you can't get its full effect. And anyone who listens to the Quran in Arabic knows that it doesn't just affect, as Bruce was saying, doesn't just affect your intellect, it affects your whole being. It's a kind of emotional, spiritual, intellectual experience. And of course, we don't claim that we could ever replicate that, but we try to produce an English translation which will have some impact on the reader when it's read aloud. Yeah.
Lovely. Now, I was thinking, this question is from the Muslim point of view. Like being a Muslim and you hear that Brother Habib is producing a translation, your name reflects that you are from a Muslim background, so people are quite comfortable. But when it comes to Brother Bruce, his name indicates that he is not from a Muslim background, maybe he's from a Christian background. So this is the question which will arise in the minds as it is in my mind. So people are thinking a person who is not a Muslim, or I don't know if the brother is Bruce is Christian or Muslim or what, but keeping the name in mind, they will think how a non-Muslim can do the translation perfectly, understanding the real meaning of the Arabic. You understand what I mean to say? So how do you deal with this? First of all, I would like to also to know that your religious background, so the people can really appreciate the efforts and all those.
So let me just say that I am a Muslim with a small m, but not a capital M.
Okay, all right.
I don't say that only as a dodge, as a way of saying to you that I'm not a Muslim, as a practicing Muslim, the way you and Rafi are. I was born a Christian. I remain a Christian, but when people say, "Who are you?" I say, "I'm a Christian who's a Quran lover."
Oh, lovely.
So I think that actually defines my two parts.
Okay.
And I don't see them in competition. I see them complementing each other.
Mm.
So when Rafi and I, for instance, had to decide on how to translate the word Muslim, it was very easy for both of us to agree that when the Quran itself was revealed, there were no Muslims with a capital M.
Exactly.
So how do you reflect
submission to God?
Submission to God.
Yeah.
And so when Rafi came up with the idea that we would do this work together, and we came to these passages, the only ones where I really had a severe disagreement as a Christian is I didn't want any of the references to Ruh al-Qudus, the Spirit of Holiness or the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, exactly.
For Christians has a meaning of the Trinity. I wanted to be sure that when we translated that phrase, which comes up 6 or 7 times in the Holy Quran, that we didn't accent or reflect a Christian bias. So we always have small h. We have Muslim with a small m, but we also have Holy Spirit with a small h and a small s.
So it would be a sort of a very good combination, beautiful combination of also making it readable for the Christian audience, for the audience that they are not Muslim from not Muslim background, but they understand the Jewish and Christian traditions. They can enjoy the translation as well. Am I
And
right?
I would just add to what Bruce said that some of the people some of the world's foremost Arabic scholars are not necessarily Muslim, you know.
Exactly, I understand. Yeah.
And so it doesn't necessarily follow that, for example, if you're a native speaker, that doesn't necessarily follow that you have a great understanding of the Quran, you know.
Mm,
Um, and so it's a question of acquiring that expertise. And I can tell you from my own experience, because I was born a Muslim, and I don't think I've met anyone in my life who loves the Quran as much as Bruce Lawrence, you know.
mm.
And so you know, it does. I don't think that stops one from being a great scholar of the Quran and being knowledgeable about it. You know.
Well, I agree with your point of view. The reason I asked this question, because in subcontinent, India and Pakistan especially, sometimes people mindsets are very close and very are, one-sided focused. I've been to USA 2 times, and I met different people from different walks of life. The meaning of scholarship is quite different when you travel around the world and try to see and understand. When you understand the life itself, the understanding of the scripture is much easier.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this, I come to my next question. How did you divide your work? Like,
Do you want to go first, Bruce, and then I'll
Well, I
come?
mean, one of the things that happens is in life is you have accidents, and sometimes they're bad and sometimes they're good.
mm,
And so one of the good accidents in my life is that Rafi had association with Norton, the publisher of this book.
mm,
And at one point, when they came to a moment where Rafi was going to commit to doing the whole translation, the editor thought that he ought to be in touch with an Islamic studies scholar. So I was lucky that I was the one chosen or one asked to do this, because it's been a really incredible journey for 10 years. So it's initiated by Rafi as a poet, a devout Muslim, a lover of the Quran, somebody who's wanted to translate it, whose
mm,
own father probably didn't believe he'd ever do it, but he still did
mm,
it. So I think the process of doing this thing over 10 years, it had one really strange accident that if we had not had COVID, we would not be talking now.
mm.
We might be talking in a couple of years from now, in 2026 or 27,
Yeah.
but because COVID required us to stop traveling, to stay home, to read the Quran more frequently, to translate it more quickly, to collaborate more nearly, we were able to get this done in what took 2 years with COVID, which might have taken 4 years without COVID. So we
Mm,
had a full 6 or 7 years which we worked before COVID, but then
mm,
COVID required us. And I think if we look back at our work schedules, 2 or 3 times more often we would talk during COVID than we did before.
mm.
That
And you know,
made it possible.
Would I say you were a traveler in a different world then? You were traveling in Quranic world.
It's very nice. I agree.
yeah, and you know, you asked how we divided up the work. So basically, Bruce came to this project with a profound knowledge of the Quran, a
Mm,
profound knowledge of Islamic history,
mm, mm,
and of course, I have some training in um, Western philosophy, Western literature, and the English language and literature. And so basically, it proved to be a very workable combination because, and of course, I've been learning Arabic for for 10 years or so, and obviously I can read and recite the Quran. Uh, um, so so basically, he came to the Quran with that kind of knowledge, and I came with a knowledge of, or some kind of expertise, if you want to call it that, in English, and so we were able to produce something which I think is basically accurate,
mm,
is also poetic. You
mm,
know, and in fact, the scholars that I was fortunate enough to meet scholars at Al Azhar Translation Center, and they very much liked our translation,
mm. Okay.
and and they kind of recommended it So we had their kind of approval as well. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. But to me, as a general reader, what I'm trying to understand, to pick from your discussion is you wanted to have a whole brain approach towards Quranic translation, not just to appeal the mind, but also to the imagination. You want the people to go into the imagination of the Quranic world by approaching the heart and imagination, also taking the mind also with the Quran. So this is a very difficult approach, I would say, is to maintain the both worlds, the world of imagination and the world of mind and intellect at the same time, and creating an interfaith sort of a harmony between the both worlds. So being a author myself, sometimes when you are working on these sensitive topics, suddenly all the problem of the world, they come to you. The family problems are there, the health problems are there, the financial problems are there. It seems like all the problems were waiting for this project to start. So I'm sure you have gone through the similar one. How did you manage this work-life balance? I'm trying to ask this question for my own benefit so I could get some guidelines.
Go
I
ahead,
think,
Bruce, and I'll come
I
in.
think one of the things that helped us both, and we would be really derelict if we didn't say that we didn't do it just as two, we did it as four,
Mhm.
because Rafi has a lovely wife, Yasmin, who knows more about Urdu commentary of the Quran than he does.
Mhm.
And I have a wife, Miriam Cook, who knows modern Arabic better than I will ever know it. So between
Mhm.
the help of Rafi's wife, Yasmin, and my wife, Miriam, we both had spouses, partners who would read with us. So whenever I would get something from Rafi would say, well, this is my first try at, I don't know, Surah Al-Waqiyah, to
Yeah.
give one that was really a tough one. I
Mm.
would say, this is not an easy one. I'm not going to be able to figure this out on my own. I have to read it with my wife. So I'd read it with my wife, and she would say, these are words that don't exist in modern Arabic. Let's go look up Lane. So there would sometimes be time when Rafi would come up with a translation and we think it sounds good, but we
Mm.
wanted to double check it. We double check it both with oral information and with literary sources. But we did this on I think of all the 6,236 verses in the Quran, we
Mm.
looked at least six. We need to look at three of them because they were repetitions. But
Mm.
every one that was different, we checked it and double checked it to make sure that we got it right
Lovely,
or got
lovely.
it close to right.
Mm. So
And
actually,
I
I
just
should,
want to add,
sorry.
sorry, I just want to add one thing to that, Dr. Naeem. So actually, working on the Quran never seemed like work to me. It it in a way, it's the easiest thing I've ever worked on because it was always a pleasure. Even when, as Bruce was saying, we were talking about various meanings, we're struggling with meanings, somehow it was always a pleasure. And it was always pleasure because we felt we were learning, even that struggle, that jihad, if you like,
Yeah, yeah.
was always a pleasure.
Mm.
And I'm just wondering, actually, if we could read out just one or two passages so your listeners could get a sense of what we're talking about,
Mm.
and how we are trying to produce certain effects.
Now, Brother Habib, would you like to read some passages from the Holy Quran?
Yeah, so I'll read a few lines from a very famous passage, Ayat an-Nur.
Mm.
And when you hear it in the Arabic, you hear that kind of balance and the rhythm and the weight of the words. أعوذ
Mm.
بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So, so the Arabic goes something like this. Allahu nuru samawati wal ard. مثل نوره كمشكاة فيها مصباح المصباح في زجاجة. And so this is how we render it. We try to keep that same kind of balance and rhythm. God is the light of the heavens and of the earth. His light is a parable of a niche which holds a lamp, the lamp enclosed in a glass, the glass which glows like a gleaming star, lit from an olive tree, blessed, whose soil is neither east nor west. Its very oil would shine forth, though untouched by fire, light upon light.
Wow, lovely. Just like in Arabic, there is a musical tone in the recitation. You have
Yes.
tried
So
to keep
we
it the same way in the English one.
yeah, we tried to capture the a little bit of the rhythm at least. So
Hmm.
it has some effect on the listener when it's read aloud. And Bruce, I don't know if you want to
Maybe
uh,
when you convert this translation into audiobook with a little bit music at the back, this
hmm.
has a what you're trying to convey in the translation will be more clear. This is what I mean to say.
Yeah, inshallah, we are working on an audiobook as
Lovely,
well,
lovely.
and
Brother
that
Bruce.
will come. Yeah.
Yes, lovely.
Well, I think one of the favorites for Rafi and me is definitely Surah Al-Duha. You asked, I think, in one of the questions, which was it took us the longest. As
Yeah.
Rafi says, it was a labor of love, so it was never hard work, but it was a lot
Mm,
of work.
mm,
And one of the things that Rafi did, which was brilliant, instead of my doing the whole surah,
mm,
my أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى. You
mm.
hear the emphasis on the end of the syllable in those first few verses.
Exactly.
And what
Mm,
Rafi did, which I think is only something a poet could do, instead of trying to imitate the Arabic verse, he said, what would this be if it was similar verse in English? So the duha is a crucial word. It's the title of the surah. It's, of course, a resonant surah because it's one that was given to the Prophet Muhammad after a long period when he had not been having revelation or revelatory
mm,
experience with Jibreel. So Rafi translates this by the morning light in its brilliance, by the darkening night in its stillness. So what I love about this rendition, just those first two verses, is you have light and night rhyme with each other, and your brilliance and stillness which echo each other. So even though it's longer than the Arabic,
mm, mm,
even though it's much longer, you still have a feeling of the rhythm, the weight, the brilliance of the original and the brilliance of the repetition. So
mm,
it's a repetition, but it's not a redundancy.
mm. Lovely, lovely. That's lovely. Earlier, I was thinking that why I'm only interviewing two people. Um, in fact, there were four people on working on this project.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually on that point, Dr. Naeem, largely because of Bruce, over the 10 years that we worked on this,
Mm,
um, we gave many presentations on it at conferences and at talks at different parts of the world,
mm,
and we got feedback. So it was actually more than four people because we got detailed feedback from a lot of people. You know,
mm,
I had a colleague in Kuwait, Ismail Lala, who is a Quranic scholar,
mm,
and Ahmed Zafar,
mm,
who's got a great knowledge of the Quran. And these people helped a lot, and a lot of Bruce's friends and colleagues, they also gave us feedback. We got feedback from students, from
mm,
native Arabic speakers, from English language poets. So
mm.
over the course of 10 years, I think it really was a collective effort, you know.
It's sort of a community project.
In a way, yes,
No way.
yes.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So I think one of the people whom you may or may not have heard of, but who's a marvelous American scholar of the Quran, um, Michael Sells, who's done
Mm,
a book called Approaching the Quran on the last juz, the last portion of the Quran, the last 30 surahs. But he said that he thought our rendition of Surah Al-Hajj, the 22nd surah of the Holy Quran,
mm,
was something that for him was a delight because of its quiet majesty. And I think if there's something that sounds like a kind of oxymoron, but if there's something which Rafi tried with his poetry and I tried with my helping him at various points,
mm,
was to project the majesty of the Quran from Arabic into something in English. And so when we were in London and we were at SOAS, and we had Abdul Halim who had several observations, but when he heard the last verse of Surah Al-Hajj, he just said, wow, wow, that's beautiful. So let me just read what
Sure.
Dr. Abdul Halim thought was beautiful. So I'll just read, and Rafi wrote this, it's in English, but it has breaks which I think are easily replicated. Strive for God with this is verse 78 of Surah Al-Hajj.
Yeah.
Strive for God with due effort. He has chosen you and imposed upon you no hardship in religion. It is the creed of Abraham. God named you as those who submit. Again, Muslimun, as those who submit, both before and in this book, so the messenger might be a witness for you and you for humankind. And then the conclusion. Be steadfast then in prayer, give in charity, and hold fast to God, for he is your protector, the supreme helper.
Lovely, so lovely. Well, this is so beautiful, but definitely we have to keep the time also in mind. Maybe we can make it this one a first episode, and maybe we can come back and do another episode. One last question. You were also getting the feedback of the people on translation to improve the translation. There's one feedback you are getting it from the people, and there's one feedback you're getting it from the Quran itself. So my question is, how do you see the difference in you, like the Bruce or Habib before the translation, and Bruce and Habib after the translation? What is so, there are two different personalities. One is before the translation, one is after the translation. Because while you are working on the Quranic translation, I think Quran is also working on your transformation, translation and transformation at the same time. So how do you see yourself after the going through this process? What spiritual experiences you have? How you feel that you are a different person than before the translation and now after the translation?
So let me answer it very quickly and say that I love your idea and I agree with your idea that the Quran works on us more than we work on the Quran, because it's only the direction, but it's also the instrument of what we're trying to do. And so I would say that if I had to summarize it in one thing, it would be Surah Al-Ikhlas.
Okay.
Because before Rafi and I ever started, there were two surahs that I said to Rafi, I know you can't translate these. This is before we ever worked together.
Okay.
When I just met him the first time. I said, we could do the whole of the Quran or we could try it, but Surah Al-Duha, you'll never get right. And Surah Al-Ikhlas is impossible. Surah Al-Duha, I've already explained because it's so compressed. In Surah Al-Ikhlas, another problem, because there's a word that comes up only once in the Holy Quran, and it comes up in verse 2, so and it's called Samad. But that word Samad, Rafi and I must have turned around our minds, on our tongues, in our ears, all the different possibilities. And I said to him, the only one that resonates with me is absolute. If we have to have Samad, we have to have one word for it, and the word has to encompass all the connotations, which are multiple of Samad. It literally means rock. So the rock of Samad became the absolute of our translation. And now every time I do Surah Al-Ikhlas, I think, Qul huwallahu ahad Allahu samad. God is the absolute, and that is the only place in the whole of the Holy Quran where God is named solely the absolute.
Wow, lovely.
And I would just add to that, I think for me, this project was an exercise in humility. And because it made me realize, and also once it was published, you kind of think, well, that's it, that's the end of it. But but I realized that actually it's just the beginning, and it's the beginning of my learning. And Bruce, the example Bruce gave is a perfect example. Allahu Samad. So Samad, I mean, the commentators, they say all kinds of different things about it. They talk about Samad as being that which is impervious. Nothing comes from God, nothing goes into God. God is absolute. God's unity, if you like, is absolute. But just that one word, and as Bruce was saying, the struggle we went through with just that one word,
Mm.
um, it kind of shows you the complexity of this task. And it also teaches us to be humble. It teaches us that this is still a work in progress. It's
Mm.
always capable of improvement, and we ourselves are still learning, inshallah.
Would I say this?
I would say the other thing to add to that is that we really had one of our most illuminating experiences from the Quran when we translated the basmala.
Mm.
So the basmala, we agreed, had to be translated with something in English that resonates. You can't repeat, but it can resonate with the Arabic. So we came down to two choices: mercy and compassion. But what
Mm.
we agreed is if it's mercy in the Quran, there had to be mercy in Rahim. In the same way that Raham is the womb, and the womb
Mm.
isn't two parts of a woman's body, it's one part. So
Mm.
Raham is one part of the body or the mind and the larger presence of God. So what we finally decided was that Rahman is fa'alan, it's inclusive. So it has
Mm.
to be something that's an inclusive. So we came up with all merciful. And then it's Rahim, fa'il, it keeps going and going and going. So it's all inclusive mercy and ever merciful, ever merciful. Is what we finally came up with basmala.
Lovely,
In
lovely.
all humility. And I hear some other people say, no, there are different versions of this, and I listen to them and I agree with them that there are different versions of it. But for us, it's the all merciful, ever merciful.
Lovely. Could I say, because there are different translation available in the market, and now we have your translations, could I also say these are my personal feelings? I just wanted to share it with you. Is the translation is not just the process of discovering the meaning of the Quran, but translation, the process of translation is basically a self-discovery process. You try to discover what God has given you, and you try to open up, through translation. You try to see in the Quran through you. So basically, Quran is basically is a mirror through the translation process. Would I say that?
It's a very beautiful thought, mashallah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Because
I
this
never
way,
thought I never thought of it that way before, but now when I look in the mirror, I will try and see the Quran.
mm. Yes, because when I'm working on these kind of different verses, when I'm reading the Sufi literatures, when they mention the Holy Quran, basically, they look at life itself, and then they connect the realities of life with verses. So it looks like you are experiencing different realities of lives in a physical form in your daily life. Those are Quranic verses, walking around you in different forms, in different shapes, in different sort of people, sometimes like this. So
Well,
it,
in the Judeo-Christian tradition, as Bruce knows, the Logos refers not only to the Word of God, but
mm,
to the rational order of creation itself. I
mm,
know Bruce has talked in relation to the Quran. When we say ayah, I mean, obviously it means a verse of the Quran, but it means a sign as
fine,
well.
exactly,
So
yeah.
the signs of God are not just in the Quran. They
Mm,
are all through the cosmos, right? And in a
mm,
way, you could in medieval times, of course, they talked about the book of the world or whatever. I mean, you could you could regard the Quran as a kind of lens through which you
mm,
look at the world, right?
mm. And this is a beauty. You're always in the presence of God when you are doing the translation, or when you're looking outside the window, looking at the realities of life through Quranic lenses, or even through biblical lenses. When you learn to look at things through God's perception, God mind, you are entirely in yourself is a scripture.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
It's,
Well, thank you
So
very much.
we've learned a
It's-
lot from you, Dr. Naeem. Thank you for very much for doing this.
yeah, and for
Yeah,
your insightful comments and questions.
yeah, I enjoyed talking to you. I would like you to, maybe summarize your whatever you would like to give a message to the audience.
So my message is very simple, is that I have had the privilege of teaching the Holy Quran for a couple of decades, but now for 1 decade, translating with my friend and partner, Dr. Refey Habib.
Yeah.
But my greatest satisfaction is not in any of this, it's in the fact that when I taught this course back in 2005, I had a Hafiz al-Quran from Pakistan. His name is
Okay.
Suhaib Khan.
Shaib Khan,
He was
okay.
in my class. And I said, why are you in my class? You're a Hafiz al-Quran.
Yeah.
I'm just a humble teacher of the Quran.
Mm.
He said, because I know it in Arabic, but you understand it in Arabic and English. So we went through a whole course. At the end
Mm.
of it, he said, I have a new appreciation for Surah Al-Duha because of your explanation of it and our interpretation. So he got
Mm.
married. He had a baby daughter named Duha.
Wow, lovely. That's
That's my
lovely.
greatest satisfaction.
Mm. And when
Yeah,
I saw Brother Bruce working on this project, I was thinking this also gives the message to the mankind that God is not only speaking through Muslims' mind, he can speak through everyone's mind, whether he's a Christian, Jew, because everyone is his creation. So this is
yeah,
our
and
take also.
Because we all are Muslims.
Sorry?
Because we all are Muslims. We all are Muslims with a small m.
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. Mm.
And I think the one kind of message that I would want to give is I think right now the world is in a desperate state, and I think the world needs this message more than ever. And the
Mm.
Quran is an inclusive message. It's the confirmation of the Jewish and Christian scriptures as well. So it's a very inclusive and comprehensive message for the whole of humankind. And we hope that by our humble efforts, we've produced something which will be readable and enjoyable, that will make the reader's path a little bit easier as they move to the real thing, which is the Quran in Arabic.
Mm. So, Brother Habib, I know you are from India, but have you ever been to Pakistan?
Yes, I have many times.
Oh,
You know,
lovely,
my
lovely.
wife is from Pakistan,
Oh, mashallah,
and
mashallah. Which
yes,
part of
yes,
the
and
Pakistan?
she's from Karachi.
Oh, lovely.
So we've often been to Karachi. I've been to Islamabad and Lahore, and yeah. So
So
she
you're a
still
half
has family.
Pakistani because your wife is Pakistani.
I don't know about that. We sometimes argue, you know.
And how about Brother Bruce? Have you
So
been
I've
to India
also
or
been to
Pakistan?
Pakistan. I spent 2 years in Aligarh at Aligarh Muslim University, but
Lovely.
I've also been to Pakistan many times. And one of my good Pakistani friends is Syed Baba Ali
Okay, Said Baba Ali, where is from?
from
Yes.
Lahore, the founder
Lahore.
of
Okay, okay.
LUMS.
Oh,
He
Lums.
founded the
Okay.
LUMS,
Okay, okay. Lovely,
and
lovely.
he's a major Pakistani Pindin, but he's a devout lover of Amir Khusro and the Quran.
Ah, lovely,
I,
lovely, lovely.
I think he has a warfare in his heart between Khusro and the Quran, but I think the Quran wins most days.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. So, well, anyway, nice meeting both of you, and I'm so happy that I'm able to contact you. And look forward to receive the copy of the Quran. And once I get it, I'll make a video review of it. Of course, I may not be able to, read it so beautifully as Brother Habib. But what I can do is now we can come back again for another episode where we will only be reading the Holy Quran. Try to get that poetic and imaginative, taste of
Inshallah.
your translations.
So brother Dr. Naeem, if you want to see the genius of my humble friend Dr. Habib, you should read just one surah. It's not the Fatiha, it's not Duha, and it's not Ikhlas. It's Surah Rahman.
Surah Rahman. Okay, lovely, lovely.
As in the refrain, بِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. He
Mm,
alters the refrain in translation, not the words, but the word order, and
mm.
it changes the whole effect.
Wow. Wow. Maybe we can do the next episode on just Surah Rahman. The translation
I think you could
beauties,
do
this
a
the
whole episode of just Surah Rahman.
Surah Rahman you mentioned.
Yes.
Yeah, so
I think
maybe
you could do a whole episode on Surah Rahman.
yeah, just one
Mm.
surah.
It's so brief, but it's powerful.
Exactly. This
Yeah.
is what I'm saying.
Good idea.
The Brother Habib can also recite the the translation and also can give us the technicalities behind it to understand it. Because Surah Rahman is very much famous for, some special psychological, I would say, or physical, say, treatments. Very famous for that.
Mm.
So the one line from Surah Al-Rahman that Rafi translated with characteristic humility and brilliance was Hal Jazaa Ihsan illa Ihsan.
Yeah.
Hal, what is the reward for goodness beyond goodness?
Yeah.
So we translate illa as beyond instead of except. And that changes the whole meaning of it.
Exactly. Lovely, lovely, lovely. So I'm so happy that the English community, English speaking world, they have another addition to the Quranic studies in form of this translation. And as I said, some translation are theology basis, theology focused. Some translations are intellect, or reason based focused. But as I can see, your translation is more focused on the heart. It's sort of a Rumi methodology, putting the Quranic meaning into a poetic form that can also, you can get the taste of that musical, tone in your translation. Am I right? If I understand.
You're right. I couldn't have said it better, neither could Rafi.
Yeah. This is just by
Absolutely.
talking to Brother Habib. I haven't got the copy, so once I read it, I'll give you more feedback for that.
Yes, inshallah. Yeah.
So give my regards to both of your
My-
secret. Sorry.
I was going to say our greatest satisfaction is we could do this during Ramadan. So thank you for this extra Ramadan gift.
No,
Yeah,
lovely,
thank you so
lovely.
much for
This
the
is
opportunity.
mashallah
Yes.
so good, and give my regards to both of the original. I would say the scholars behind both of you.
The Ansar, right?
Yeah. I mean, your mashallah is so good to have a life partner who is very supportive, because I think
it
these
is.
kind of sensitive projects, sometimes you will not only get blessed individually, you get blessed as a family.
Mm.
You are on a leadership role, you're sitting on a pilot seat, but people behind you are also getting blessing through you from the Holy Book. So it's a
Inshallah.
complete blessing package for the entire family, entire community, and entire country.
Well, thank you for the barakah of this meeting.
Yeah,
MashaAllah.
thank you so much. Yeah, we
So I'll,
appreciate
I'll,
it.
I'll ask your permission to leave, and then we'll get back for another episode, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
very much.
Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair.
Wa iyyak. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum.